Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. We want to genuinely welcome all of you, and thank you for coming today. We appreciate you coming down to our meeting. So we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. But before we get started, I would like to ask a favor of the audience. There's a lot of heavy things in our community right now, and if we could just take a moment of silence, specifically for the Egan family. If you want to say your own private prayer, we'll just take a minute. Thank you. Mrs. Perkins, if you would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Williams, can you give us your report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not have a projection for a report, but I do want to just highlight a few things that have been going on in the district. And I can't believe we're in the July meeting right now, and school is right around the corner. A lot of different things. I do want to just have a special thanks. You can tell those that are here in attendance that our carpets and everything have just been cleaned and coming in. And our grounds maintenance and custodial staff are fabulous. I'm not taking away anything else from any other employee by giving them the praise, but we are so lucky at West Jefferson to have the custodial staff, the maintenance staff, grounds crew. Our student that we've hired this year, Jackson Van Epps, is doing an amazing job out on our grounds. As you look at that, you know, with all the different activities that still go on during the summer, our custodial staff are getting in and out of the classrooms. These ladies work so hard, and I think it reflects greatly just on our community, but also just the pride that we have in our schools. You can notice around the school, yes, there are no trees in the front, and I've heard from some of you, they were calling me the Lorax. I was getting called the Lorax, trying to make sure. We have a major project happening at the high school right now with the roof. All of the old gravel and everything has been taken off, and they're putting on a new roof. We're super excited about it. They've had to take all that gravel off. There's a lot of dust going everywhere. So as we have the dust with that project going, our custodial staff is trying to clean the floors and get them ready to go to be waxed. And so we have different projects fighting against each other. When we do get to the action items, that we'll talk a little bit more about the high school gym floor, where it's at with that. A lot of great things going on. So Second thing I just wanted to talk about is just, and again, there'll be more talked about this in the action items coming up, but thank you to those that attended the PAW meeting yesterday. The previous PAW meetings that I've had, the attendance was me, and luckily I had to pay Mrs. DeGraw and Julie to be there to video record me on those. But thankful for those people that were able to come out and discuss. I know we have a lot of different things coming up right now, and the PAW meeting is something that I can look back at every PAW meeting where we've had discussions about things, and it has impacted the way that I go forward with things, or the ways that I even present to the board. And so I just appreciate that. And that's all I have for the report today, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll move to public comment, and just as a reminder, input is not to exceed 3 minutes. Mrs. DeGraw will serve as our timer, and discussion of personal matters or personal attacks are not appropriate. So we'll start with Mrs. Scott.
Hey everyone, you know why I'm here, but I want to maybe address something a little bit different that you haven't heard from me yet. Words are powerful to me, and the meaning of them can cause us to create opinions and perceptions. I was all out of words for this issue when I came up again. I was going to jump on the bandwagon, and I said the word to my husband, let's just go play on those days. And then I got kind of sick to my stomach because I signed a 180-day contract to teach kids, not play. Something that came to me this morning that helped me solidify my why about why I continue to battle this is the word year. School year sounds like a long time, but right now it stands at 166 days. That is less than half of a year, and is actually only 43% of a year, not counting the full day. So it's probably less than that. That is what we are asking parents for to educate their kids. Let's take this a little further. If we switch to a full 4-day, you will have your kids 144 days of that year. That's 39% of a year. Over time, that adds up. From the ages of 5 to 18, it sounds like we take a lot of time when we say 13 years of school. But it actually, at 166 days, equals 5.91 years, not full days. At 144 days, it equals 5.1 years of actual school time. So knowing that the state of Idaho has less than a 50% go-on rate and a 46% post-secondary finishing rate, that's where I stand. And I think as parents, you see that sweet little kid going into the doors of kindergarten, and I see him now as he's leaving my house the same way, and it terrifies me sending him to college. But that's where I want him to go. We need to be honest that if we join the status quo that the state of Idaho is setting, that 4-day school weeks are okay, especially for small rural schools, that we are going to join that status quo. So let's talk about our seniors that just graduated. If we are 50%, then 24 of them will go to college. Of those 24, only 11 will finish. And let's not just say college, but let's say, because my son's doing trade school, let's say even trade school. I hope he is one of the 50 that makes it, and I train them at that level. So I want to talk about a student. I hope I have time. I spent teaching her honors and dual credit English for 2 years, but in actuality, it was 4 trimesters, 120 days. She just published a journal article in the Journal of Neuropsychology. She is getting a doctorate degree in neuropsychology and just presented in Chicago to neurosurgeons and neuroscientists and other doctors. She had me in a speech class for 60 days. You're wanting to take more and more of those days. And I'm sure she took one more in college. I taught her how to research write. I didn't teach her everything she knows, because I was going to go to that journal article that the school's locked. She sent it to me autographed. Those are the pieces that I get back from students that we are preparing to leave here. And I just implore you, I know parents, you want to keep your kids, but when you think about those numbers, we don't have a lot of time. 5 to 6 years. If you really think about it, and we're teaching them to read, and you're asking us to do that with less. So let me hear, cut the fluff. Well, a fluff that I would cut for my speech in my dual credit classes was democracy speech. Last year we had a girl go to nationals. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to have her decision to speak now.
Daniel, can I carry?
Hi, I'm Danielle Carey. I know you guys have had to listen to me a lot. The last little while, I'm just right about that. Trust me, I'm tired of talking. But I know there are so many people in my community, my friends and my neighbors, who feel like who want a 4-day week, who feel like they aren't being listened to. We're the ones not screaming our arguments the loudest or calling you wanting to fight or be disrespectful. We are the fighters. We know you have a hard job and we appreciate all that you do, but we still want to be heard and represented. And after a phone conversation I had last night, I know you are being heard. We want what is best for our children. We are the parents. So when it said we don't care about their education or we just want more for them, this is so frustrating and quite frankly, this is something. Some of us have to come from a 4-day week and have personally seen how beneficial that schedule is for our kids. We have seen and know what that extra day off does for our kids and how it allows us to have a day to recharge, to other interests, do homework, spend time with their families, have learning opportunities outside of the classroom, even get a job. There are so many benefits to a 4-day schedule for our students, families, and employees. I've seen them in my kids and my family's life. I've talked about my daughter and doing a full 4-day week of kindergarten, not very long after having fought cancer twice, having multiple major surgeries, chemo, and radiation. She did the long days with an incredibly long drive to and from school. I've been told that long day and drive wasn't fun for her. But as her mom, the person that was waking her up every morning, getting her ready for school, and picking her up after school and taking her home, I can assure you she was fine, very happy, and maybe even having fun. My kids have done well in both districts. They have received a good education in both. They have amazing teachers in both districts, and they have really good friends in both. So the difference was the 4-day, and then I know the 4-day week was truly better for them. So please listen to us. Listen to the thousands of people who have a 4-day week and love it. We aren't people who just want another day to sleep in and play. We are involved and loving parents who just want what is best for our kids. Thank you.
Anita Swan?
So I only have 2 grandkids left out here, Roman and kids in Rigby. My brother also teaches in Preston, which is a 4-semester school. They love it because after the meeting yesterday, I went home and called him because I was like, I don't know enough about it. He said that he loves it. He feels like the kids are excelling. And he also said that many of the teachers said that they went back to 5 days. They didn't quit. They only do the 4-day, they don't do the extra day just before. And he said that this side this year will be a 4-day, and Marsh Valley is a 4-day. He really feels like those kids have done well, and they have kids that drive well over 30 miles to go to school too. And he said it really has only added 15 minutes before and after school. So that's just what I say.
Thank you. Emily Belknap?
Good morning, board members. I'm not here to discuss the pros and cons of the 4-day or 5-day school calendar. Those things were discussed, yes, I did the calendar was approved. I did to accept that one element of school is to start the economic inflation or emergencies that would cause the calendar to change on such short notice. This decision is rushed. When making a decision this size, we feel like time is needed to evaluate the consequences intended and not intended from that decision. When working towards solving the problem, all possible solutions should be evaluated. For instance, yesterday, several suggestions that they thought could possibly address their concerns that staff has when we come and we're voting the next day. I just does not have time for those ideas to be fully invested. For brainstorming to happen and for other creative problem solving, I just didn't move forward. We would suggest that more time was spent with numbers and facts and some creative ideas to arrive at a solution that doesn't have the power to go back and previous decisions. The board already voted on the approved and approved the 3-day 5-day hybrid county. I would ask the board to please stick to the county we've already approved and explore other options to address the concerns of the staff as well as the patrons of this district.
Thank you. Mr. Harrelson.
I was able to, a little bit different as a principal, talk to the board candidly with Mr. Williams last year, share my thoughts. It started with this conversation I had with Mr. Burton Tyson, when I got to teach Tyson in 4th grade. He just asked what happened to a teacher, Mr. Downs, and then he asked me what I thought of 4-day week. I had shared that with him going in his neighborhood, and being a principal, I thought I give advice before be careful. But when he asked that, it was in the evening, he was picking up my boy from practice, and I said, if you really want to know about it, it's gonna be an hour conversation. And I said, okay, I have time to listen now. So we talked about it, and I wrote a summary of that, a letter, presented it to the board, we talked about it, so they know how I feel. I'm strongly in favor of it. And I'm just going to sum things up, not talking about the things that they debated back and forth. But Mr. Williams gave me a tough assignment here and there, just in our few years that we've been able to work with. Sometimes the answer to my question is no, and this is why. Sometimes it's I'm going to think about this. The bottom line, he's taken a lot of time to think about this. If this was just a matter of something, maybe let's try it. This might be a fun thing. This might be something like. When the word recommendation comes behind it, for me, it's a vote of either confidence in Mr. Williams that he's made a recommendation, I'm going to stick behind him and his recommendation, or I'm not, and I'm going to. I really believe Mr. Williams. I don't think we'll have a better superintendent, maybe one just as good. I see a lot of things similar to Mr. Spillman, which I really love working for him. Appreciate the board's job. They do have to go against Mr. Williams sometimes. You guys have to balance what you hear from your neighbors and friends. I would say constituents, because it's your friends and it's your neighbors, it's family, and that is tough. But so glad that Mr. Burnshaw, you asked me questions. I thought that's what it is. I love this community. My daughter got to work with the cheerleaders, built that program up. I got a son who's on the maintenance and he's working to be a teacher here. My librarian's my sweetheart. And that's the same for all of us here, right? We have family, we got good people here, and I think this can help us to do that.
Liz Moss.
First off, I just wanted to talk about the time before meetings for help. It makes it really hard for some new people. It's like an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 job to be here. I just heard a comment when we got here, well, it looks like the teachers can do it. Well, that's great, but we also need some other community members to make some of these meetings as well. Middle of the morning or 1 o'clock is really hard. And then also in reference to the 4 days per week, Emily basically said what I was going to say, that we felt like we researched and did a whole bunch of things. We came up with a hybrid calendar, and that seems to be working pretty well. And I just feel it's super rushed to change the schedule 1 month before school starts this fall. Things have been set, schedule was set. Now, if we change it for next year, fine. You could have the sport schedule, so you have your further away games on Thursday. I mean, sometimes we go to San Jose on Tuesday night for sports, and then we get home super late. And I don't think, I mean, the idea to change some of those things. Some of those things can't be changed. I just think it'd be easier if you already knew you were going to do that. So when our AD set the schedule, he can work towards that. But if you do decide to vote for 4-day, please at least go to the newest 4 days, we don't have those stupid blended days in there, so we can have 4 days for instruction instead of 3 days for instruction.
Don Bird.
You, Mr. Bird.
Thank you. I don't think that, so I'm going to say this if you don't mind. The decision you make today isn't going to affect me. But it is going to affect faculty, the staff, the administration, and the other district students that have to travel. In 1983, when this district formed to get up and going financially, the district had major cuts. In 1985, we had an exodus of some great teachers to this district. In 2008, went through a financial situation. They did cut tax acquisitions. We lost some great teachers in the school district. And if this financial hurricane is going to hit like a JP Morgan was predicted, I never see us be proactive to do something now, than reactive to have to do something later. Because I think this lose some great steps that area. Thank you.
Shay Williams.
I just thank you for being a case where they really appreciate that. And thank you for your service to render. I see the way you guys do. Thank you for keeping focus. I have a 4-day week. The phrase I hear a lot of this topic is why is it not okay? And I'm thinking about is you the outhouse and how functional that outhouse was. And I am so grateful someone pushed the idea, it enhanced our way of living, our quality of life in hands. And I just think that education, we sometimes get confused where education is the end game. Education is the vehicle that drives us to quality of life. What if a 4-day school week is going to enhance our lives? What if? We will never know unless we try it. Well, this book, Great Hand, we all know the story. Sam just wants to kiss the Green's Great Hand. And he's very reluctant to try here. And he's like, no. Finally, he's like, no, I'll try it. Look at this picture. He's very skeptical. But you know what? He's going to try it. What says that? Sing. I like Sam. I do. I like them, Sam. I don't either. We don't go. I didn't even know he goes. I'm not saying I didn't get anywhere. And he goes on to say, I do like Sam. Thank you, Sam. Sometimes we have to urge to write things. They're new. What if 4 days school week is a failure? Well, then we are wiser because of it. And I feel like that's the core of our creation, becoming to learn and to grow. But what if 4 days school week is successful? Then our lives in his hands. We will be grateful, just like this character here who are taking a chance. I invite us to please move forward and show the rising generation what it looks like to be brave and step into the unknown in pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Annie Dowling.
Board, I appreciate everything you guys do. I know that it's a very, at times, thankless job. So thank you for sacrificing this. I am someone that from the very beginning of the conversations, like 9, 10 years ago, I've been against by hoarding. Every time. I feel like a lot of to do it because it gives my quality of life and maybe it's more time for my kids, feels like a lot of to me, which I struggle with. The discussion this time, however, has changed my opinion. I have a friend whose daughter is in high school and she said something about me going, being a prom queen in the 1900s. What was school like in the 1900s? Like, man, I'm really stuck in how it was when I was in school in the 1900s, when Mrs. Scott was making teaching the 1900s. And it was great. I loved it. We had a lot of great things, but COVID was terrible and it taught me a lot of things. And one of the things is that we can be creative with the education of our children. And sometimes the way that we think is the best way. We've always done it is not always the best way. Choosing to go to 4-day week because of inflation and because of the gas and fuel prices to me feels like there's no reason. It feels like a black and white business decision. It doesn't feel like I would love to see their kids. I love them. And that's just the way it would be, but that's not a good reason to me. But this feels like a black and white decision to me. This feels like good business sense. It feels like saving money for buses one day maybe for that, inflation for fuel prices, that feels like a good black and white decision to me. So for that reason, I am for 4-day adjusted schedule after the planning. There's I don't it's not perfect, the schedule will never be perfect, but I'm ready for those reasons.
There.
I appreciate this opportunity to speak. And I want to clarify that the other options aren't true full 4 weeks. But it's a step in the right direction. I have always been 4 weeks. Since before I was a teacher, I've been a favor. But now that I am a teacher, I have more of you because I do think that it's what's best for students. I think it's what's best for our leaders. Already, even before these gas prices, leaders are paying. They keep coming because this is not just a district, but I do have conversations with long term. And I have friends who are concerned this year about what it's going to be like and whether it's sustainable for their families to continue to come to the South District. And among those people are really talented educators. That have been trained in initiatives that we started in our district, and none of that is being taken away. It hurts my heart to hear people call one of their days stupid because you don't see what we see as teachers, how that benefits students. And unfortunately, all the versions have included the continuation of that learning day, but Superintendent Williams did listen to the people who expressed concern about how that doesn't come out and came up with creative solutions that will still serve those students in need. I feel like we need more family time in this day and age, not less. I feel like it's okay to balance when we're not losing instructional time, but days, it will provide a better balance. This world is much scarier. Children do not have an escape from the perils of social pressure because of these. We're stuck with them. I just read a study about, that's been the biggest study that they've done on 4-day school week and the impact on achievement. And it was found that districts where there was 4-day school week, the children taught better students like the neurosurgeon, they're going to go there no matter what they go to school and no matter what schedule because they're good at school. The students that I'm concerned about are the students who aren't good at school. And right now, we have 2 students from our school system who aren't good at school. They are childless and homeless. They would have benefited from a weekend to practice workplace ethics. We can't provide that at school. And students are stupid. They know that they're not going to use much of what they do. They'll use the skills in school, but the content, not as much. We need a better balance between like 4-day work week exists for that reason. And it's because I get like bigger districts are going to it because people don't just like it, they love it. It allows us to, like teachers, business on a business day, we won't be missing PDs if we have more days off, and people will be saving money. These are just some of the many reasons I believe it's better for students in college who go a few days a week. We still have a lot to go on. Our students are learning a lot too, it's teachers.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Williams, can you give us an overview of the different draft calendars?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Make sure I'm on there. With this action item, with the current economic climate, board has discussed last Friday's work meeting, the consideration of a 4-day calendar. I'm not get too close because then it will start having that echo. So, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeGraw. With our POM meeting yesterday, we had approximately 30 people there, and I alluded to the POM meeting and how that went. During that POM meeting, as superintendent, I shared the reason why this process was coming up. And I shared with them our school district mission statement. And it's one that we can memorize. We're a small school with big opportunities and endless possibilities. And highlighted the different things that attribute to us being able to fulfill that mission. In that mission, it is paramount that we are able to retain and attract staff and retain and attract students. On one hand, people might be saying, well, why do you need more students here at West Jefferson? We have approximately 20% of our students who are out of district who may feel like they do not have a voice. But that 20% of students allows us to be a 2A school. If we were a 1A school, our mission statement would have to be changed to a really small school with some opportunities, and hopefully, and the reason why I'm saying that is because as we lose students, we lose funding for teachers and programs. Right now, we are at a very great sweet spot as a district. We are a small school. We're not too big, we're not too small. And we offer excellent electives and opportunities that many 2A schools don't offer. And with the inflation and the gas prices, is that going to take us and say, okay, everybody's going to leave and not come? You know what, it might. We're close. As I'm looking at the projections of our school enrollment, when our 4th graders get into high school, we could be a 1A school. I don't see us opening up a lot of places for people to move. And if that's happening, it is going to impact the quality of education, whether we're on a 5-day or a 4-day. But if it does allow us to maintain that mission and vision statement, then that's what I presented. That's the why behind it. And so there was some great feedback that came during the POM meeting. And I think it's fair to recognize that this does seem rushed, but there's a lot of things that come into play when you're making a decision of this magnitude. And by waiting to a certain point, there's lots of pros and cons to, well, I don't want to say there's consequences either way. One consequence is if there's a change gone, a group will say, you stuck with what you wanted to do and what you initially said. You'll have another group that says, you see an impending storm and you're choosing not to act. It doesn't make this a very simple cut and dry, because we know from our experience, we've talked about a 4-day school week for over 10 years in this district. And I don't think very many people change. I think we had one person say I changed on that. But other than that, people are pretty set in what they want. And so looking at the fuel prices as one of the elements, some people say, well, you're paying your teachers above and beyond the pay scale. A lot of our teachers come from a family that has 2 incomes. both spouses work, we're not going to feel the pinch. They're not going to feel the pinch as much as an email that we had from a staff member who works as a paraprofessional, shared their take-home pay of $750. And the cost that it would have them to travel to work increases the amount of what fuel prices only would be. And with fuel prices, it might not impact our commuters, but it will impact my ability to retain and attract new ones. I look at that email from that staff member. That's approximately 30% of their take-home pay has to now be put towards fuel prices. They're saying, I'm not coming to work to make money. Right now, we still have 3 paraprofessional positions that we need to fill. This is a great plug right now if anybody's listening at home that doesn't have a job. I know all different places are doing that. This board has raised the base pay that we had from that. A lot of that came because the state gave us extra money for insurance. We haven't had to use our supplemental levy as much for insurance. We're actually being able to cover what we're offering. Whereas in the past, it's not extra money that we have because the state gave us that. We're actually able to cover what we give our teachers. We took that supplemental levy as this board and pushed it right into our classified staff. That was very admirable. But when we look at the situation, that's all going to go to fuel for that employee. That doesn't give them any extra to buy groceries. That doesn't give them any extra. And so I worry about that. We talk about quality education. If we don't have paraprofessionals here, the quality of education goes down in the classroom. So some of the proposals that we have talked about, we do have the current approved 5-day hybrid. We have our post-work meeting calendar and our post-PA meeting calendar. The comparisons on these. Oh, that's going to look funny. I didn't recognize that went in that way. Let's see if I can rotate that. There it is. Keep it going. Yeah. Make sure we don't have to stand on our heads on that one. I know that it's something that we look at with student contact days, and the state of Idaho requires hours of contact for students, contact days. And I think it's a valid argument one way or another. On one hand, we are going to reduce the amount of actual face-to-face time over years. That's true. But the hours of the year will continue with that. So we're still meeting what's the requirement. When we look at over half the school districts in Idaho have moved to this, including big districts, you can't think that this is not a trend. This is not just the hip thing to do. That wave has already gone on and looked at it. People are still debating the pros and cons of it, but they are still producing happy students with high test scores. In the state of Idaho, out of the top 25 schools in Idaho, according to the entrance exams as was posted on Idaho Ed News, 8 of the schools in the top 25 were 2A schools. Out of those 8 that fell in the top 25, 7 of those 8 were on a 4-day school week. Out of those 8, the highest was Marsing School District, which has a higher ESL population than West Jefferson. Those are all things. This isn't a trend. This isn't a jump into the dark. This isn't something that we're going, hey, let's feel good about it. We found an emergency. Let's do this. No, the emergency is real, as I related about that employee. If we wait, it's going to impact them. They'll probably still come to work, but we just have to know that that's one of the things that's going to happen. Comparisons on this, Madam Chair, as we look at that, the 5-day hybrid had 161 contact days. However, as those that have shared their feelings, they hate the blended days, at least the ones that were in that. I hate to say this, but I think the blended days were used the maximum possible on how the teacher embraced it. And if it was viewed as that much down and it's only 151 days of instruction, then so be it. But it was at least a contact day. In the 4-day post-work meeting, the calendar had 145 student regular contact days that included the 6. And so that would have been when people are putting together if they say blended days don't count, they're subtracting that and they're looking at that as not as an instructional day. As superintendent, I felt like it was an opportunity to be able to reach kids that needed it. That's what the blended day was for. The professional days, as we go down, well, I'll go to the 4-day post-PA meeting. After the PA meeting came in and the feedback came, don't put a blended day on Monday, because the perception is now that's a 3-day school week. And if that's the perception, I can't change that, but I at least hear you on that. And so in the post-PA meeting, I created a calendar that took away the blended day on that day, but to stay true to any calendar, we have to have the required number of hours to meet with students. And as superintendent, we have to have professional development for our teachers. And we have to have intervention time built in somewhere to be able to address that. And so from that feedback that I had in the post-PA meeting, we have 0 blended days, but we are rethinking how we're doing that. On a teacher contract day on a Friday, where teachers are contracted to be in the building, we will have tutoring available from 8 to 11 for students. It is not going to be tracked and counted as a student attendance day or a student hours going towards the total count. What that did, and in a way that taking the blended day off the Monday increased the time in front of students, which actually gives us more emergency closure time by doing that. That suggestion was a great suggestion, and I think it strengthens this jump or possible jump with that. I think if you were taking that alone, some people might say, I hated the blended days so much, I'll take that. But again, it's the way that you approach what the calendar is in front of you and the time that you have with students in front of you. Also looking at the start and end time, the approved calendar would have a start time of 8:10 and the end time of 3:30 with 7 hours and 20 minutes a day. The post-work meeting would have had a start time of 8 and an end time of 3:56. This calendar included a breakfast break for secondary students, 7 through 12. As I took the feedback from the PA meeting and was thinking, okay, we have people that are still worried about time with kids. They have to wake up earlier, they have to wake up later. So I explored what it would look like. I reached out to Mrs. Ward, asked her, what if we don't do a breakfast break for secondary? A couple things are changing this next year anyway. During the COVID time, there was a waiver where all students received food for free, even breakfast, and it made it available for high school. So the breakfast break this next year, high school doesn't qualify for free universal. It would be only those that submit the application and qualify for free and reduced, which would probably really limit the number of high school students that would really take advantage of that. So I thought, well, let's explore what the schedule would look like by taking away the breakfast break, putting a proposed start time at 8:05, which would allow students who exit the bus who are in junior high or high school, who feel like they want to participate in that, would go to the lunchroom, grab their take and go breakfast item, and be able to start school at 8:05. This has an added benefit to those parents whose kids are getting on the bus. They're really not going to have a start time difference on when they're getting up. It takes that concern away and takes it out. But because the breakfast time is not there, it does allow the high school to end at 3:50 with 69-minute periods for 7 hours and 56 minutes on the daytime. That moving down the Hamer campus to 7:45 to 2:45, the work meeting discussion was a 7 hour and 30-minute day to see an end time at 3:15 with the blended days now being extended. It allows Hamer to end at 3 o'clock instead of 3:15. And so the start and end time would be exact for all the way through. And then you can see on the different hybrids, with the current calendar, there would be 20 of those weeks that would follow 5 days, 12 weeks that would follow 4 days, and 2 days, 2 3-day weeks and 2 2-day weeks. You can see as it progresses, those days would go down, and then after the post-POM meeting calendar would have 3 days where students would come for 5 days. There would be 31 of those weeks that are pure 4-day weeks, which make it more clean cut and easier for parents to follow. 1 3-day week, which is leading up to the Christmas break, and 1 2-day week that would be before the Thanksgiving. I will bring up the post-POM meeting one, and just as I can walk through that as you're looking through that, this is what it would look like. Keeping in mind that this is a change and it is rushed, and it is something that some will have to take adjustments. Taking that into consideration, the start date for both staff and students doesn't change. So whether it's this post-POM meeting or the current one, it's not a change to anybody. The end date is exactly the same. There is a difference on the current one. There would be a blended day on the 21st. There'd be a teacher work day on the 22nd, whereas this one, they would be regular school days. Spring break would still be a full week as on both calendars. Looking at a difference between the current proposed calendar and this option here, the current approved and this one. 21st would have been a blended day, 22nd would have been a parent-teacher conference. However, school would have resumed on the 6th and the 7th. For those that look at this for harvest break, this actually increases the strength of a harvest break, as it gives those farmers 3 full weekends to be able to work on the farm in the potatoes. And so these are things that I see are the main differences between. As you can see, there are no Mondays that have blended days. The blue days would be the tutoring days. It would be a teacher contract day. Kids could be brought in. Teachers do not have to assign any work for those that are not there, because it's not counted towards an instructional day. That takes away the perception of busy work was just being sent home. It takes the stress off the teacher thinking, I need to educate kids at home and at school. It allows students to come in and receive tutoring and whatever. If it's in a CTE class, they can come in and weld. On those days, if the students need to take more time, they can talk to the teachers about that. A question came up during the POM meeting on, are there any grants or anything that could be explored with these calendars? And initially the comment was grants on paying for people's gas to come to school. Those don't exist. We can't do that. The question was, well, can the state not increase things? The state already has. The state has been very generous on doing that, but it's not the state's fault that there is inflation. You know what I mean? There are too many different things going on. We're at a lot of really good places right now, but this is where a calendar like this, when you're thinking what type of grants could be implemented on things like this. There are the grant that I did talk about that could be a possibility, and I gotta be careful because we can't promise it, because when you write a grant, you send it out and then it has to be approved. But there is a grant called the 21st century grant that does allow for things outside of school day, either after school or outside. That is something that the district can now explore on a more consistent basis, because a plan could be put into place to say, these are the days we don't have school. Is there funding available to have resources for kids that want to come in? Other things that haven't been explored, because it is so new, is we could set up other tutoring options for staff that wanted to, using federal funds during those days that are out, including some of the learning loss money and things that we have from the ESSER funds that go till 2024. Whereas in the if you're looking at pros and cons with it, the current proposed calendar, to students, there are Fridays off, but to staff come every Friday on the current proposed calendar. And so, Madam Chair, that is my explanation. I hope I was able to be there's so much to look at, and there are probably other questions and concerns when one looks at a calendar like this. The main questions when it comes from the state, we still are meeting the requirements for the hours in the year. It actually has 3 emergency days built in for the high school. It does not extend the teacher contract hours. And so the other things that would have to be looked at are some of the details that administration would have to sit down and say, these are the hours that are required on these days as we move forward to meet the same amount of time on the current contract. So I will pause here, turn time back over to the chair, and be willing to answer any questions or even move to different calendars as the board discusses. Thank you.
Mr. Williams. Thank you for that. My understanding is that your recommendation is the postpone meeting draft.
To address the current calendar does not address the need for relief for those that are traveling. As superintendent, I will implement. I'll take whatever this board decides and goes forward. To address that issue, I do feel like this is a really good option to address that. I think it solves the problem. Even when I'm going to pull up the current approved calendar, and I, those that watched the meeting yesterday, I said, whatever the board decides, the current calendar is going to get torn apart no matter what. No matter what, every single calendar is going to get torn apart somewhere by someone. There's going to be something that just doesn't work with it. If blended days are one of the biggest element that people are like, I don't like this because now this is a 2-day week. There's a 4-day week, when really I'm seeing it as a 5-day week. This is a no week at all. And then it's a day that's lost. If that's the perception that people are taking and it's not being used the way that I intended it, I could either be really prideful and say, no, this is the way that it was intended. Please do it my way. If it's not working for those people, let's make it work. And you look at this and say, well, let's do the tutoring on those days where it's a teacher contract day that increases the time for that. I know that there's lots of times where you can crunch numbers and different things to say, I'm losing time, I'm losing hours. We've done things in this district over the years that have been different. We've tried trimesters, we've tried semesters, we've tried the AB blocks. There's nothing really right or wrong about any of those. There's pros and cons with all of them. My first year as superintendent, we had 6 periods at the junior high and 5 periods at the high school. At that time, we also only taught our core, our junior senior English and our math classes 2 out of those 3 trimesters. So if we're thinking that we're going to go back in time, we actually have more contact time in a 4-day schedule teaching math all year long than we did 3 years ago when we only taught it 2 out of the 3 trimesters. We're not coming in and sacrificing a whole program by going to do this. Your electives will lose some time. Your freshman and junior, or your freshman and sophomore English is still on a 2 trimester. Yes, it's going to be a little bit different, but as we know that if we focus as a staff, if we focus as students on the things that are the most important, the kids aren't going to remember every single little thing about content in class. Mr. Bird, I'm sorry, I don't remember everything that you taught in the classes, but I had a great experience there. Mrs. Bunce didn't teach me everything I needed to know. I still had to learn and grow after school. And I think there's something that comes to, regardless of whatever calendar we're on, it's the work ethic of our kids. It's the support of our teachers. It's the support of our parents. If we're worried about this and the board chooses to go to a 4-day and you're a parent that's saying, no, you're going to take away your time, tell your kids to buckle down and work hard. And they're going to be fine. Tell your kids to do that. Yes, you're going to say you're going to lose a thing, but education is ongoing for forever. Right now, we have people who say, if I can't wait till I'm done with school. As soon as I graduate high school, I can't wait to be done. I don't know if more days having them come is going to fix that attitude. So I just wanted to compare the two things to say I can get torn apart on either calendar. I think the PAW meeting one was great feedback. It brought people to be able to say this is an okay option if this is the direction you're going to go.
Madam Chair, ask a question. Mr. Williams, on the post-PAW calendar, can you explain to me how they can have a blended day and a teacher professional day on the same day?
Thank you. The question that, if you couldn't hear Mrs. Perkins asked, how do you have a professional day and a blended day? So I'm going to take blended because it's not a blended day. Blended day, which is something that District 93 and School District 251 is going to implement. Rigby School District has a Friday blended day. That means that there's an assignment being sent home to those students that don't come. Those that do come into school are working with the teachers for a half a day. At the end of that day, the teachers in 93, they did this on a Monday. Their morning is basically, it's a blended morning with an afternoon of professional development. So teachers are contracted for the days. Teachers aren't contracted for this many teaching days, this many this. Teachers are contracted for a set amount of days or hours in a school year. And as superintendent, as administration, we're the ones that determine what they do during that time. That's how it works in a contract.
So are you calling that day then a professional development day?
It is a tutoring day, and the afternoon would be a professional development. I didn't know how to split that color in half, because when you look at the.
I think you should learn.
I am going to learn, thank you. So if I could split that. That might be the best thing I've heard today. Some people probably already think that. You should learn, Mr. Williams. But that's the great thing about education is we're always learning. But if there was a way that I could take that blue day that's on that, split it in half diagonally. You might be able to do it in probably Excel, but not Google Sheets. But that's really what it is. And
okay, that makes sense.
And
so you're saying that the hours for that professional development day are there, and that everyone that they're required to have is in that calendar.
Correct. And so that's where we're still staying true to time for professional development for teachers, time for collaboration, time for being able to get together. It allows parents who are worried about, or even teachers can reach out to their kids and say, please come on this tutoring day. Drop a note to the parent. I would really like to see your son or daughter there. A lot of the things when we hear critiques, and I guess to be fair, I've only shared the things where people were negative about the blended day. There are times where our teachers were asking for kids to come. We've had kids that have failed classes, and we have kids that don't show up or didn't show up on those blended days. And then some of those same parents are going, why do we have a broken program? Why do we have a broken education system? What's wrong with our grading system? Those are things that we have to look back and say, let's take advantage of the time that we have. We can't do it alone as a school district. We can put together this type of a calendar, but what I am certain in, we're only as good as the time that we put our effort into with the time that we have in front of kids. And so whether it's this way or not, I know that as I looked at the staff, I didn't do an official Google form with a survey to the staff, but the staff that did come back in, I made a tally. on which ones were in favor of it and which ones weren't. And it's overwhelmingly in one direction. That tells me, depending on what side you're on, we either have 85% plus of our teaching staff that hate kids and want to ruin their education, or they feel like they can be just as effective during that time. That's one of the things. This isn't a wave. This is something that I think addresses that. Going back to the main issue, can I keep paraprofessionals coming when that hits them harder? Their take home pay with the price of gas, it hits them the hardest.
Mr. Williams, it hits them hard when they lose a day of work.
That's a good question. So the question, she says, it hits them hard if they lose a day of work. Right now, a majority of our paraprofessionals work 6 hours a day. In a 4-day school week, we would be able to increase that to 7 hours a day. So they actually get to work more for the time that they come, which allows that to go up. We've also had an increase in their pay. It should balance out at this time. Mrs. DeGraw.
As we have done our research into these 4-day calendars, I have run the numbers, and I'm confident we'll maintain our people's salary where it was last year, if not even higher.
They will receive a raise, but they'll be down in hours, what, 2 or 3? So it looks to me like they lose. I mean, they're not going to come out ahead. So that's not a real viable argument on that one, because,
No, they will come out.
well,
If you'd like to come and sit in the office with us, we'll run the numbers on it. As we were going through this, the extra hour a day with the increase of pay.
right, but that increase in pay was meant to be something fun that they could see that was different, not even amount.
Right.
Yeah, when you get a raise, you want a raise.
And so-
you don't
so-
want to just even out.
Which that does allow on those Fridays, it allows different families options now. If we can take the time that they're working here, increase the time that they're making while they're here, they could explore other things. Or some of these individuals, even
Two jobs is not fun.
2 jobs isn't fun, but some of these people are also paying for childcare.
Yeah,
And like, really, there's paraprofessionals that will come in that are also paying for childcare on top of the gas. And that's one less day of childcare. It helps somewhere.
maybe.
It helps somewhere with it. And
It's just not a big bonus for them, no matter how you look at it.
well, even if we stayed on the current schedule,
Right,
it wouldn't be a big bonus.
Well, they did get a raise, and it'll still not real good for them.
It's not. It's a tough situation. I started out working in the schools as a paraprofessional and remember how hard it was. Sorry.
Mr. Williams, I appreciate all the time that you have spent, all the feedback you took into consideration in creating this, and I will entertain a motion to adopt the post-PAW draft calendar. Madam Chair, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have some things I want to say. When I heard one of the people say that they didn't feel represented, that really struck me as being a criticism against the board, and I want to answer to it. I can swear to you that I represent every person in my district and in the whole district. And the reason I ask questions is because I have to know that something is going to be okay for kids. I don't ask them to put your view down or to build somebody else's view up. I actually want to know the pros and the cons, and I want to know what could happen and what may happen. And so when I don't just say, oh, I'm on your side or I'm on your side, I'm not against you. And I felt bad when I had several calls that said, you went back on what you said. You made the deal with us that we would have 3 years. And now you're taking it back. And then when I heard that I'm not representing 4-day people, that's not true. When we adopted this calendar here that we presently have, that calendar was a compromise so that we made everybody feel good. The 5-year people felt good. The 4-year people felt good. And so that's what I want to see, is everybody feeling good about a calendar. When we go straight for the 5-day people feel bad and we have a divided community. When we go straight 5, the 4-day people feel like they're not being represented and they're mad. Everybody wants what everybody wants. I want it, so therefore it has to be that way. You have to listen to me. Well, I have a lot of voices. I had over 40 some contacts in the last 2 days. And I was up late last night because I was on a phone call with somebody trying to bring them down. It's a hard decision. This is not easy because I see both sides of the situation. And I would have liked to have seen us continue with this calendar that we have now and not rush into anything. I feel the same pain you do when I fill up my car. But these things come and go, and maybe it will ease out, maybe it'll get worse. If it gets worse, yes, we could look back and say, boy, you should have been proactive. But these things happen, and when they happen, we deal with them. But I didn't see it as a huge, big emergency. And maybe it is, and I just haven't seen it. But I thought that we had a calendar that gave those teachers some time off and gave those parents some time with their kids. But the people think of me as an old dinosaur with old ways that I cannot change. I certainly have seen a lot of change through the years. And I was in Utah when they went to year-round schools, and that was hard. But I've seen a lot of change, but I want something that I know when I do change. I want to know it's for the better and not just that I can have my children home more. Because I used to say to my son, you have a job. Your job is to go to school. You worry about that, and we'll worry about supporting you. And when I heard a couple of comments at the PAW meeting, could I just share this with you? I have some time, Madam Chair. I want to share this comment. It was a teacher who said, my students, my little students, need the mornings to learn. They don't learn as well in the afternoons. That's when we reinforce and do other things. But in the mornings, I have to have them for that 5 days to teach them. Well, now you're telling me that I can teach them in 4 days. It's okay. My old brain, my dinosaur brain, says to me, I'm not seeing the rest of the country going this way. I'm seeing Idaho, who is 39th, 40th in education. Not the best role model to put up here, but you're telling me that other places are happy and that they're enjoying a great life and everything is roses and have your kids home more, and that maybe our schools aren't the best place for those kids to be because it hurts sometimes for them. I understand that. But I also worry about that loss of instruction. And you can tell me 100 different ways, and I still think it might be a problem. I've seen research too, and I think research, you can find any research you want, support what you want. Some are better than others. But I have been reading about how after a certain time, we go along with everybody else, but after a certain time, we're getting a little learning loss. And that makes me worry. And then I got a comment from one of our well-respected teachers. And she said, our students need as much time with the teacher as possible. Let's see, she thinks that with math, dual credit classes will suffer. And then Amanda said, well, that student will always reach the top. But how hard will it be to reach the top? They're important too. And we don't just say because the student is a good student and they'll always make it. Sometimes they might not. And they may get to college like I did. I graduated from West Jefferson High School and I thought I was the smartest person in the world. Because back in that year, it doesn't look anything like what it looks like today. And we didn't have a whole lot of offerings. We had science, math, English, and whatever else somebody could teach. But I went to Rick's College thinking, or it was Rick's then, thinking that I was the smartest student there. And I found out right away that I was not. And I was not even prepared at all. And I had to just really dig in. And yes, some students will do that and make it. But how much easier it would have been for me if I could have had everything I could have gotten in the high school. And she goes on to say that with math, I have concerns about even offering these courses, these dual education courses, when our students are already low in math. And we're starting to remedy the problem, but this takes time, and now we have less time. So I thought about that. These comments leaped out to me. And so this makes it a hard decision. And it's not that I'm not supporting those people that want a 4-day, or that I'm not supporting those that wanted a 5. I hope you don't think that. I hope you don't think you don't have my support. But I want both sides to be happy, and maybe that's not possible. That's why I thought, let's finish this 3 years out and then let's talk about it. That was my thinking. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any other discussion? A motion has been made and seconded to approve the post-prom meeting draft calendar. We'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Rigby. Aye. Mr. Schmidt.
Aye.
Mrs. Perkins.
Nay.
Mr. Burge.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Teacher alternate authorization.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of the process of making sure all of our teachers have the certifications and correct things from the State Department, we have 3 teachers that will be on letter of authorization, which means that they will be required to take the praxis test, because when this board here approves this, we send an application into the State Department, which does verify and certify that they're certified for the current school year. So this is just that process. Let's see, the 3 teachers, Mr. Packer in science and Spanish, Raquel Torgerson with middle math, which does allow her to teach geometry and algebra 1, and Mrs. Horakami, who has a business degree, will finish off the certification with the praxis test.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the teacher alternate authorizations.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Request to surplus buses.
There's been a request from Mr. Pincock that we have 2 school buses that are taking up a lot of space and dust over at the bus barn. Just as part of when we have the buses, we need to come to the school board and have them approved on the surplus. These are the 2 buses, the 2002 Bluebird and the 2007 International bus. These will be listed in the newspapers and in Facebook pages. When they are sent out, we'll have an opening date time and a closing date time. With that, then the administration will be able to receive those bids and put that out. And so this is the formality to be able to make sure that that property of the school district can be surplused.
Anybody want to build a bunker?
I really kind of wanted to have one to be a parade float machine where I cut off the back.
Mrs. Williams has vetoed that.
Okay.
Move on.
I want to ride in that one,
You want to write, we might get Nidra out
out of Willie's
of
car.
Willie's car on the parade.
I appreciate that variety.
Yeah, it's not easy.
But it's not on the agenda whether or not.
The chair will entertain a motion to surplus the buses.
I so move.
Is there a second? I second that. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Bond project.
All right, as we've had our exciting different bond projects that have been going on, we do have the approval for this spending as we go forward. So one of the under the umbrella of the safety portion of the bond, there's an upgrade to the phone systems that we are looking at. So as our fiber wire projects and it's hard to say, the fire wire projects are coming from the E-rate reimbursement program. As those get completed, we're seeing that there may need to be an upgrade to the phone systems. And so as we're looking at a budget to do that, we're seeking approval for a budget up to $30,000 to put in there, like we've done with our auditorium and everything else. Say this is the amount that we'll look at, and that will give us time to explore the options, but then be able to move on that at that time. So that is the first action item on this one, and we can move to that motion right now and answer any questions specifically on the spending approval for the budget of $30,000.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the bond project budget of $30,000 for the phone system upgrade.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
The second one is one that we've already had in the budget, and we've pre-approved it to be part of the budget, just like we just did with the phone system. So when the phone system does get complete, I will revisit this with the board with the final amount, just so you are all aware of that. The United Services Company has completed the work on the high school gym floor, and as you can see, it looks completely different. The floor was sanded down and brought back to a beautiful, beautiful color in there, brightens it up. We did put a very simple outlay on this. You can faintly see the lines right here. Those are going to be PE lines that are going to be used for badminton and for pickleball that the PE department will be able to use. Our old gym floor did not have that, so it's going to facilitate it for all the PE classes. It does have the volleyball line that's set up. One thing that was interesting on this is a couple years ago, we had to offset where the volleyball line went. It didn't go right through the midcourt of the basketball court because they had to put new supports in. But then our volleyball team would have to bring tape in and then retape the lines of where the actual games were. You can see that there's still some extra things to do. The paint, I think I've already talked about that, but Mr. H is in here. I have to do a shout out to Mr. H with all the painting that he and his crew were able to do, the maintenance staff by putting up the shiplap and just making it look really sharp. So this is what needs to be ratified. They did come in and fix some of the dead spots. So there are certain spots that they went in and cut out, put new flooring in. Right now, these white baskets are gone. Unfortunately, the company coming in to do that didn't measure the brackets correctly, and they had to reorder brackets. or else we would have had the adjustable glass backboards on the side already. So
That's not something we have to pay for.
no, nope, that's something, we just have to pay for it in time by waiting. The pads are up, and I'll show that off next week. So we have safety pads that go across the entire baseline and brand new basketball standards, not backboard, but standards there. So those are the final things. The bleachers will be coming in with an anticipated time of harvest break. So I know that was. So the motion, so we just need to approve the motion for the spending, I believe. We forgot to put the exact amount on that, Mrs. DeGraw.
Pull up
It's 21,000, 22,000. If you find that first, unless the board knows, I know we have the PO for it, we just did not get it attached. But it was part of the budget that we went over in work meeting, if you remember.
Mhm.
So does the board feel like we need to see that before voting on it?
I remember it.
You do remember it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The chair will entertain a motion to ratify the bond project spending approval for the high school gym floor.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we ratify the spending for the gym floor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to E-rate project.
So the E-rate project is we've done what Mr. Weeks at our technology department yearly applies for to be part of the E-rate reimbursement program. And that is the program that has helped us put fiber optic wires throughout the district. We're really close to having those all in. They've also helped with the drop ceilings and being able to get the different wireless ports throughout the buildings. And so that is a major project, and it is 2 or 3 years in the process. And you probably feel like every single year I'm coming up with, hey, another E-rate thing you need to look at. And you might think, when are we ever going to be done with it? This is near the end of that phase, but the E-rate thing is something we can apply for every single year and do that. So what the E-rate does is it reimburses 80% of the spending on that. It's a great bang for your buck, and we've been able to do that. So what that will look like is the current spending approval that we're seeking right now would give us more port switches, battery backup for the servers. So when the power goes out, the servers have the battery to keep going. And then additional wiring that will continue to go throughout the building. 24 classrooms. And so that amount is, I know it's not the price of copper going up or anything on the wires, but the amount that we are seeking on the PO that will come through the district is for 66,000. We'll see that be as an expenditure. And then once that expenditure is made, then the 80% is then put back. And so then that's where the difference will be made.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the E-rate project spending. Madam Chair, I so move. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Secondary handbook.
So the secondary handbook is something that the board does have annual oversight responsibility for, but because it's not policy and it's a procedure, it allows the administration to be able to again, during this time of the year, come to the board and say, are there any things that you're seeing that you'd like to be addressed through the student handbook? One of the things after the work meeting, instead of calling it a high school handbook, we need to call it a secondary handbook that combines both the junior high and high school. As those students do share, they're still 2 individual schools, but they're sharing staff and sharing administration. This would help streamline confusion in a lot of the different things, from dress code to tardy policies to behavior policies. It just makes it transition better. Can highlight some of those. Again, these are procedures that the administration, if they see a need, that we look at. Now, after this vote, this page right here will be changed. But again, we're not voting on exactly what's in here. It's just, we're voting on that the board has had annual oversight and recognizing that. Trying to think if there's any area that was specific that the board wanted us to just look at.
Phones. So, yeah, why don't you go down to phone, cell phone policy.
Okay.
Procedures. We include the valedictorian.
The grading procedures, this is one, we're trying to simplify the grading procedures that still allow us to say that the goal of the district is to utilize standards reference instruction and grading to improve the learning. But then the confusion is when it gets to a transcript or a GPA, we don't have to use the 4s. It translates to an A, to a B, and to a GPA. So that is simplified on this. Substance, phones, maybe I just extracurriculars. Oh, there it is. So high school, and this is, I believe, similar to what's there, that the high school students may have cell phones or other related electronic devices on school property. These devices will not disrupt the educational process, including but not limited to posing a threat to academic integrity or violating the confidentiality of private rights. May only use the cell phone and other electronic devices before school, during lunch, after school, unless otherwise authorized by a teacher. This is something that I am going to ask administration and just remind teachers. Let's make sure that cell phones are away unless they're being used for the specific reason. And you can see that just a few of the other things. Electronic devices are not to be used to take pictures or videos without permission. You know, those are things that if there are pictures being taken, videos, that stuff is being disseminated through Snapchat or anything else to tease or bully or anything else. It's clear on this, but it also is a violation of the harassment portion of this as well. Junior high students, with the procedures that we have at the elementary that we implemented, where junior high cell phone it's gone, you don't see it at all. This is just since it's going to be a secondary handbook, junior high students are not allowed to have cell phones during school hours. They can bring them with them. They can have them before school starts. When the bell starts, put them away. They can only use it after receiving permission from a teacher or a staff member. Teachers and staff will confiscate the cell phones and take them to the office, and students can pick them up at the end of the day. A pattern of cell phone violation develops. Parents will be required to pick the phone up at the end of the school. And we've had a lot of great support from this. I've had some people ask, why can't that be the policy for both? Right now, we're going to take the approach of teachers need to take ownership of their classroom and when they're using it. And that's one thing that we'll look at.
On that. On
Yes.
the high school section, mentioned that the device will be confiscated by school personnel, and those devices be taken to the office, just as it will for the junior high students.
Yes, and we probably could add those bullets up if that clarifies it.
Just so there's. That was my accident. That was supposed to be there as well. Okay.
I think there was one other highlight with this. It was the
Go down to
oh
hazing, bullying, pranks.
yes. So the handbook does have the different the behavior examples of where they would fall. This helps administration. So bullying, definitions of bullying and hazing that are not allowed. I think it's. So this was one that we did want to clarify with the students and also just with parents and community. Pranks that include vandalism, unlawful entry, trespassing, theft will result in disciplinary action and or prosecution. We had the TikTok challenges that were were really prevalent last year to be, the beginning of the year. I think it's just important to remind our students and our parents that these aren't pranks. If it includes vandalism, unlawful trespassing, theft. So students involved with pranks that violate the law and or disrupt the educational process will not be allowed to participate in graduation ceremonies.
Change that verbiage, I need to-
This here
was it senior students?
is going to say senior students, but it's going to be changed in the, to say that maybe,
Let me read it to you.
yeah, go ahead and read that on what it's.
Students involved with pranks that violate the law and or disrupt the educational process may be required to go before the board and may not be allowed to participate in graduation ceremonies.
So disciplinary action will take place regardless of whether a student is near graduation or not. The thing about this is I'm not trying to come out and say this is only because of one person. We had TikTok challenges last year where there was vandalism going on, and some of them are dangerous TikTok challenges. And kids need. Yeah, we don't want smack a teacher on the behind pranks going on. So those will be result in disciplinary action.
All students. All students, but in this part of it, it's going to be senior.
So we've got to clarify in this section
Well, in
that
that
seniors.
section, because this is.
Yes.
This is graduation.
So
ceremonies,
there will
and
be
this is for all
a clarification
Okay.
that talks about pranks regarding class pranks. Class pranks are not anything that
And seniors may not be allowed.
that we want to promote as a school district, but I also recognize that anytime administration asks for something, it's also not me trying to say, I challenge you to come in here and hit us up with a senior prank. It's just one of those things that for us to maintain the academic integrity of the school, to protect our school buildings, to protect the school day, we wouldn't want to see a prank disrupt anybody else's business. We wouldn't want if there was a business that you had a deadline and something was pending and something stopped you from getting to that's something that those aren't tasteful. And I guess we can't put a list of things, these are okay to prank us on, these are not. It's one of those things that we have to just say, please don't do this. And this is why. There will be disciplinary action that does include the school disciplinary action and or prosecution, depending on where that falls, where that action falls. So that will be clarified, just letting the board know that we'll clarify that for the differentiation with the seniors, or those are right before that time.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the secondary handbook.
Madam Chair, I so I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? I second that. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Uniform purchase.
So it's the high school athletic director is responsible for setting up the uniform rotation for all of the schools. The football uniforms needed to be ordered on a timely, time-sensitive manner. And so as superintendent, I did give permission verbally to the athletic director to make this purchase. In a perfect world, we would have been able to come and then order it in a timely manner. That's why this is a ratification. The district has already sent out this purchase. This is just to ratify the $5,782. This is also going to be a great introduction to our next topic. Anything over $5,000 does require to come to the board for approval. And so that is district policy. And so that is why this is brought up, not because it's a high school uniform or trying to keep an eye on what every single project is doing. But that is the only reason why this is being brought up, just to make sure that we're in meeting the policy of ratifying or approving purchases over $5,000.
Madam Chair, question. You remember when we used to have such a hard time with the budget of the sports people. They just were always short. They never had enough money. Are things working out now, and the things that we put into place to help them out and to make sure that they had the money that they needed? Are they
It's
feeling
working.
better?
It is. It's working. The support that the district has been able to offer, in the balance with what the different fundraisers are, I feel like we have everything that we need at this time. I know there's always major purchases that can come up. And a lot of it is also the approach of this board of, I know that over time, there's been different philosophies on how extracurriculars play into that, but I think you can see with our mission statement, small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities, everything plays an important role. And when we really look at it, people that say you don't invest enough in education, you're taken away from education. You know, when you look at the amount that we pay out in salaries for teachers to educate our students, far exceeds percentage-wise of the budget that goes into any extracurricular. So to answer your question, yes, we're doing great things with that, and we're moving in the right direction.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How often are football uniforms?
But football uniforms technically are 4 years with that. Football, when you look at the type of sport, some uniforms can last longer. Where when you look at a lineman who is lining up against somebody every single play, those uniforms, they want to try to do four years. Those are approximate numbers, it's not in policy that it has to be done like that.
Other sports rotated, what's their rotation? Because I heard
It's-
one time that the girls and boys junior high basketball were sharing uniforms.
They were.
Is that still the case?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And so, no, I'll speak on that, Jeff. I got it for you. I know that Mr. Harrelson was right in on that one. So there's been it kind of goes along with what just the process of the last couple of years. First year in, the elementary principal that oversaw K through 8, which was an impossible task in my opinion, because they're so different when you're looking at kindergarten and 8th grade. And then they become the de facto junior high athletic director, which doesn't make sense in a district our size. And then there's no connection between athletic budget and planning for it. So a couple of years ago, after the first year, I was like, man, this isn't working. I assigned our high school athletic director to now be the secondary athletic director, which oversees the 7 through 12. And in that, budgets were started to be built to make sure that they were there. If not, there was not really a budget for the junior high to do that. So to save money, there was a time where they had unisex uniforms, and they allowed both the boys and girls to use them. That is no longer the case. We do have separate uniforms. We have boy uniforms and we have girl uniforms now for that. And so there is a budget that is built. The junior high rotation is on a different rotation than the high school, but it's something that is looked at. So we're moving in the right direction with that. But that is definitely a concern.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? Mr. Williams, what is the football helmet rotation schedule?
Ooh.
I know with the helmets, it's
So,
really a
The football
tricky issue.
helmet one is, I don't know the exact years, whether it's every 2 years or every 3 years that a helmet has to be either replaced or reconditioned.
Now, my understanding was they couldn't be reconditioned anymore, or
You
the
could,
company refused to do it anymore.
so what happened was the time period that they bought a certain amount, you only have so many times you can recondition it before you can continue to do it. It's not like 1-year-old cars where you can recondition it and keep it for forever and look good in the parade. They have the 7, I don't know what the exact is, but they have a limitation on how many times you can recondition. This is a situation, right now it's not an emergency, but it's not anything that any other school's not dealing with. Rydell, which is one of the companies that makes helmets, had a major fire at their factories, I don't know, a few months back, that destroyed probably millions of dollars of helmets. I wanted to blame it on COVID because that's always the easy thing to do, but as I was talking to Mr. Hadley, he just said you cannot find helmets right now. You cannot. And the ones that you can find that you could get for $300 a few years back are now $800 per helmet. We were hoping that we could offer the parents that played football several years ago. This was something that Jimmy Burtonshaw did with her kids. Is she found a company that allowed her to rent a helmet to always have an up-to-date one. And we wanted to give parents that could want this opportunity, that the school would still buy helmets and recondition them, but then give parents the option to do that rental process. That company can't even do that either. So we were hoping that that would be something that would alleviate it. We do have enough helmets. They are reconditioned. We're still waiting for a few more, but I know Annie's in here and she's part of the Grid Kid helmets that were $120 last year. That's Grid Kid, which is a community one. It's one of those things. I'm hoping that their company will be able to get them back into production. But to answer your question, yes, we can only do it so many times, and then after that, and if we don't recondition them, then we will be held liable. It's not like the helmets that probably you used to wear back in the 70s.
So our goal last year to get several new helmets.
Yeah. So when we did buy those helmets, when we did last year, that probably saved us.
So we're current on kind of
We're current.
where we need to be.
We're current. It would be nice to have a couple of the Rydell's fit different than the shunts on different heads. They're both great helmets when you get into the high school level. It's just, we have to keep an eye on that.
Because it's a safety issue.
Absolutely.
I know the state is really looking at that really closely.
Yep. So our helmets are reconditioned and taken care of. So thank you for that question.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay. Chair, I'd entertain a motion to ratify the uniform purchase.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, informational and discussion items. Policy 8021.
So as I gave the teaser, I guess the uniform purchase was a teaser coming into this. The policy 802.1, obviously you can see that this one has not been rewritten yet with the ISBA numbers, but it is something that I do want us to start addressing before we get into that rewrite of that policy level. And the main part of it is the requirements of the purchases that come before either the board or become before a purchase order. And so Mrs. DeGraw reached out to several different school districts in the area. Reached out to District 93. Oh. Sugar. And
the policies are very quite drastic between the districts.
And so ours, when we looked at that, our thought was, so what happens on any district purchase of $300 still requires signatures. Everything that we buy will require at least somebody looking at a signature.
2 signatures
on every single purchase. So if I'm a teacher and I use my P card and I go and I buy something, the principal still has to look at that and say, okay, I approve that. There's dual control on that purchase. But what happens is there's $300, if it's $301 on our current policy, there's one more piece of paper that has to be filled out where they take it and it's on the paper that has the carbon copies, and they have to fill that all out because that's the purchase order that then comes to the district office to also then be processed. So that purchase of purchase of $299 right now has the 2 signatures. So we have control at the building, and that's it. Then it goes into the finance system. It's still tracked. Why don't you follow? Speak on that, please.
So school purchases require the purchaser and either the administrator or the secretary, if it's the administrator making the purchase. Then if a check is being written either for their
Reimbursement.
credit card or for reimbursement, then that check then has 2 signatures, either from secretary, admin, or the superintendent. District purchases have the purchaser and the superintendent or the business manager. Once we reach $300 right now, if it's a school purchase, it requires a school purchase order, which then also has to come over and have a third signature on the accounts payable voucher from Mr. Williams, along with the signature on the purchase order from Mr. Williams. District purchases then get a third signature. So if Mr. Williams was the second signature, it would then become I was the second signature and Mr. Williams is the third signature. We create a purchase order. The purchase orders all take time. At this point in time, we are thinking and spending $300. And so we are making so many purchase orders and it is taking so much time.
And that's where we look at, like, you look at inflation of the different costs. Like every time we turn around, it just purchase order, which does take time. You're thinking, yeah, but it doesn't, it's more of it's a bureaucratic step that we could alleviate by increasing the purchase amount.
In addition to the board to have oversight, you see their financials every month. And more often than not, I am in their offices looking at what they're spending. So there are so many eyes looking at this. We are not making it easier for somebody to do something wrong by increasing it.
So as we talked with the different districts, the two that returned it, that we were thinking that if we double the 300 amount or the 5,000 amount, essentially, then that just, it cuts.
Districts that require board approval on spending is $10,000. The two districts that require purchase orders is $2,000. So I don't feel comfortable going that high with our purchase order amount. I feel like in a district as small as ours, where we have only one secretary in offices, we need that district oversight.
And so 600 compared to what was some of the other ones on that?
2,000.
So they were allowing schools to spend $2,000 without having the oversight.
Yeah, any purchases over 2,000.
And I don't feel comfortable with that either, but I think $600 gives them the flexibility to be able to make purchases without having to go through that process. It will cut a little bit of that and it still allows us to do.
And say again, how many signatures that has to have over in the school?
So by the time a bill is paid or reimbursement is given, we have at least 4 signatures, if not 6, if it's over $600.
Or three, currently though, 300.
Right, for 300.
For the
And
300.
in addition to myself and the board overseeing their finances.
So that's the one for the school purchases of 600. And then anything over or between 600 and 9,999, that's where the bigger oversight comes in. Is that correct, Mrs. DeGraw?
Correct.
And you're saying not 10,000, but what? What do you want to do?
5, but 10.
Not 5, but
The board
you want to go up to 10?
up to 10. You are already, very few districts actually have the board sign all the checks. So we have a board member looking at our bills before they go out. Then you guys see our full budget report, our accounts payable. This will just make it, I don't want to use the word easier, but alleviate some of these action items. Our uniform purchase was $5,300, I think. You know, and I don't know that it's necessary.
Another example on that where it's just over 5,000, there's different things where we have it already in the budget, it's budgeted in, and if the technology department comes in and wants to buy something and it's 5,001, I have to bring it to this board and say, hey, it's already in the budget, this is what we're gonna do. But I think, but now that's why we ratify a lot of things, you know, as well, because we've kind of balanced that. But we wouldn't have to ratify all those every single time that we're in a meeting.
And And this is not our desire.
It doesn't seem like it's been excessive.
It's becoming excessive because of the increase. Our secretaries, as they're buying things for this school year, they're going to have to write a purchase order.
Is there a different level though that, because I know every board member has concern, they want to make sure. Does this make it easier for fraud? Does this make it easier? Like how does it?
Sometimes I just want to know what they're spending their money on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm not worried about fraud. That's not what I'm worried about. I like to know. Sometimes it helps me to know what's going on out in schools too, you know, so that we don't feel.
I like that. That's
And
fair.
that's valid.
But if it's cumbersome and taking a lot of time, I don't want to do that
I would
either.
like to, at the very least, increase from $4.99, $49.99, somewhere. If doubling that,
$6,000 or $8,000.
I would say at least 8. But if it's concerning, the reason why we felt comfortable at least with this discussion, this is a discussion, we're not voting right now. This is just something to look at as we put it together. The other districts have it at 10,000. Sugar City has it at 10,000. I believe it was 93 had it. And I believe, again, if I remember right, Madison did this. They actually went up to 999 for the principals when I was a principal there. I feel comfortable keeping it at 600 because we're smaller than Madison. But yeah, that's why we wanted to open this discussion. It's something that I think would streamline things in the business department. The clean copy.
Yes, please. That's so sloppy and messy.
This one right here.
Yes, please. Okay.
So this is the clean copy of what we would like it to go to. The messy copy, I guess, it had a lot of procedures in it. When you look through the different things that we're looking, these are all federal guidelines. Basically what they're doing is the guidelines are all put out. The other thing is it starts talking about,
Well, if those are federal guidelines.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be in our policy because we have to follow.
You have to follow those. The other part.
And they shift and change.
The other part is credit card purchases. These should fall under procedures instead of under.
Now with our credit card purchases, before our teachers take their credit card, we have a form that they must read through and sign, agreeing to all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sorry.
to me, this policy seemed cumbersome, and really what we want to have is these amounts.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just the amounts, but it's.
So are these changes you're making before you send them to
ISBA.
ISBA?
What was that?
So when we get to the rotation
When we get to this rotation, we will send this with
With
ours, and
changes
they'll be
that-
aware that this is our current one.
Okay,
yeah, and they'll be able to review that.
all right.
So it was 3 pages before? Plus 6. And you trimmed it down to 1. Correct.
I don't know. I keep going back to the messy
I
copy.
didn't have time to read it.
So was it really that standard difference from 85 to 2004? It says it was adopted in 85 and then it was revised in
And that was
2004.
right, yes.
So it went that long without any revision?
Correct, and we have not had a revision since 2011.
Yeah, it's not just paperwork on Mrs. DeGraw. It's what the teachers, what the secretary, what the principals have to do.
So if you have thoughts on this, please let me know.
Yeah.
And if there aren't major alterations, then we'll go.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. Review of our safe return to school plan.
So this is a requirement as part of receiving federal funds, is that the board has an opportunity to review, give feedback and input on our safe return to school plan. The only things that I'm seeing on this that I haven't gone in and changed anything, but my proposal would be that we continue to implement this plan the same way that we've done business as of last year. Yeah, and the one part that is changed specifically is as we are coming to the end of our federal funds and having the ESSER money. Initially, when a teacher or staff member tested positive for COVID, we would not impact their sick time. We'd basically reimburse them from the COVID money that was there and available. Moving forward with that, we are going to do what other districts are also moving to, and that is the COVID sickness is a sickness the same as any other sickness. And so if there's an illness and a teacher has an illness, whether it's COVID, whether it's the flu or flu-like or COVID-like symptoms, that they will be required to use their own personal sick leave on that time. As with any illness, there's always extenuating circumstances with any individual. We'll be open and aware to that. So if there is somebody that has an extenuating circumstance, we can always look to help with those extenuating circumstances. But this plan still has a lot of the same things about with COVID, the different rules. We are not going to require masks. We are not going to require vaccines. We're not going to do any of that. This plan here, we do meet the requirements. We will communicate with people, but our goal, as it's stated here at the beginning, is we want in-person learning, keep our students and staff healthy and safe, balance the socio-emotional well-being of being in school, plan that builds flexibility. This has a lot of flexibility in it.
So are they still requiring us to submit this every year?
Yeah,
How long is this gonna go on?
it's going to be required until, I think it's going to be required until we spend the remaining money.
Until we spend the money. Okay.
And so this is something where if the board wants to give feedback, our plan will be reviewed with board members and stakeholders biannually. These are the opportunities to do that, and give feedback.
Okay, we'll have to do what they asked us to do to get rid of them and get the money.
So this conversation does meet that requirement.
Okay.
And the next one, Madam Chair, if you would, okay, if I could, the ARP ESSER plan spending use, this is similar. This is another part of that. So one was the safe return to school plan was a requirement to be able to spend the money, and then also to spend the money, you have to have a plan to spend the money. And so we were just talking about cutting red tape. It just feels like, so this does not have any changes from last year where we've talked with the different groups on what we can utilize. In our discussion today, Mrs. DeGraw, can you turn this one down just a little bit? I'm getting a little echo. With the adoption of the 4-day calendar, we can have flexibility now by potentially using some of this money to offer tutoring for kids on those Fridays where they're out. So that's one of the things that we can do. The things that we talked about in this one is to buy supplies and materials, facility upgrades. In those facility upgrades, the water fountains, those are still on our radar. Still on our radar. It's just working through everything. We're gonna get there. With the audio system, that's one that's part of the spending plan. That will be coming. I don't think it's going to be in 100% ready to roll before school starts, but we're going to have a timeline, and that is something that can be done while we work with them as we go forward. And other COVID-related costs for maintaining operations. That's where the flexibility. That phrase right there gives us the flexibility to utilize staff members to come in out of time to work with students, or to hire a learning loss teacher or aide and things like that. So other than that, these are all the same things. It just talks about our district and how these funds will be used for all students, including students in special education, students with language learning students, mentoring, teacher bonuses have been used with this, staff bonuses, buying curriculum, a lot of different things. And so this is just our plan. This review of it gives the board a chance to say, can you add anything else in there? But I think a lot of things we put were so broad on the that allows us to have the flexibility.
And how close are we? I mean, are we getting to the end of the money?
So we still have with ESSER 3. We haven't submitted for, but we have some. So there's, but it's tagged though, for the. Yeah, and so the audio system is gonna have take a big chunk out of that. The water fountains are gonna have to be a chunk. I would say that we approximately have 250,000 still to work with, and that's where the water fountains. That's where some of the ideas with this room, now that we are in a different venue, we've talked with the board about, these benches in here don't really allow very well for social distancing. You have to scoot in. So if we remove these benches and we purchased foldable chairs, we could use that would be an allowable use for this. And then, there's a lot of different things that we can utilize.
Buy
with it.
padded chairs.
Padded chairs?
Yes.
We could look at it.
Those others are so hard to sit on.
We'll have one row of padded chairs for Nedra and her
And my friends.
And then
Right now, I probably don't have any.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, does the board have any other feedback on this or keep going the way that we're going?
It's good, I just.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's been a few years.
It's been talked about for 3 or 4 years, guys.
No.
Okay, and then last discussion item, Madam Chair, this is just again another verification that the board is aware that as superintendent and also special ed director, that myself and my special ed coordinator, that we are following the special education manual. This is just an annual verification. It's one of those things that you find the things that you're supposed to verify every single year with the board. And this is letting you know that the special education manual is accessible on the website of the State Department.
So
And
this is not a manual that we made up. This is
not a
one that
manual.
we're-
This is basically saying
I use it.
I'm certifying to you guys that we're using it. We're
Okay.
following it. Our special ed teachers are trained in it, and we're aware of this.
Okay. With that being the last item, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.